This video is brought to you by SUSOIX. SUSOIX, the innovators of spikeboarding, StandUpSpike, and the creators of the original skateboard spike. SUSOIX, become the motor.
Hello and welcome to another StandUpSpike video presented by SUSOIX and made possible by the SkateBoard spike. We are here at the river bottom of Cornwall Landing in Orange County, New York, and we've got a small action camera mounted on the back of a little Honda car being driven by a good friend and neighbor. And thank you very much, Sandy. We really appreciate all your help in getting this video made. There is gorgeous Cornwall Landing right there on the Hudson River. Beautiful river, 10,000 years. Its name was Mohicanituck, the Great One, the arm of the sea, which flows in both ways. Get to know that river, understand it, use it, live on it. It gives life. Here we go, little stand-up spike coming right over those train tracks and no warm-up, so we're feeling it pretty darn good. Notice how those feet always shift to the front side. Stand-up spike only happens on the front side, never the back side. You're looking at an athlete who has been practicing stand-up spike for the last 4.5 years. And on day one, year one, week one, month one, was unable to even go up a little 10-foot lump. So if you're considering getting into stand-up spike, fret not. You will not be climbing mountains on day one. You won't even be climbing little 10-foot lumps. You'll be on a nice, long, flat path, getting your switch stance going and beginning to clean up your stroke. And we're going to get into a little analysis here. First of all, thank you very much for the locals having a little patience, not being able to get around the camera car. Otherwise, the sport is very similar to road cycling. It only occupies shoulder width apart space on the road. So let's get into the stroke, shall we? As we can see, the arm is at a 90-degree angle upon impact. This is very important. You don't want to have outstretched arms or you will not be able to engage your core. This is not paddling. This is the equivalent of double poling in cross-country skiing. Notice how the vector line is at a 45-degree angle to the rear upon impact. So we are taking our arms and keeping them completely squared up, 90-degree angles. At the moment of impact, we're engaging core. Those tiny little arm muscles are not going to be able to work as effectively and powerfully as the core as well as the back. So Nordic ski and stand-up spike really leverage on the core as well as the back. So what we're doing is placing that spike tip into the asphalt, and then we are pulling ourselves up and over the top of it and past the point at which we have spiked into the pavement. So here we come up to 218 and we're going to make a little stop here and continue on to Mountain Road. As you see, the feet are in a carve position, but they are facing generally forward. So we're using our upper body weight to fall into and upon the stroke. And that is the key to an efficient stand-up spike as well as an efficient double pull. You're going to want to use that upper body to let it fall onto the top of that spike. Let's concentrate very well, shall we, on the shaft itself. Notice at the moment of impact, that shaft is parallel, exactly parallel to the board. And of course, for that to happen, you need to make sure that the red upper handle is slightly to the side of the shoulder or right at the shoulder. So don't fret when you first begin that your spike tip is not quite in far enough. You want to get it about 2 or 3 inches away from the side of the deck. The more out of parallel the shaft, the greater amount of energy lost. So the further out your spike, the more energy you're just giving back to the universe that is not propelling you. So you really want to make sure that vector line is at 45 degrees. You want to be striking right around at the rear foot or behind it, maybe just a little bit in front of it at times. It really depends on the terrain and also the pitch of the mountain. So you'll see that as it gets a little steeper, we will tend to spike a little further back, and the strokes will shorten up as well. Notice how the end of the stroke is just beyond the quad, especially on the flat sections. Notice how that hand on the top of the skateboard spike is making it all the way past the quad. We're coming up on a little stop sign here. We're on Boulevard, and we're going to stop, come to a complete stop, and then start up again with stand-up spike from a complete zero. So when you go out for stand-up spike, make sure that you don't do any kicking, and you commit to starting from completely zero when you start at your stops, and this is really going to help you begin to develop a commitment to a solid 100% stand-up spike workout. We're not counting here. What we are just generally relying on our feel of when we actually need to go over to the other side of our stroke. But in the beginning, you should try to count. Try to count to 10 or 20 or 30 or wherever you feel comfortable. Usually your warm-up is a switch between 5 and 10, and then you can move on to maybe 10 or 20. But in the beginning, you want to try to switch as much as possible, thereby practicing your switch and your walkover from side to side. You want to try to stay on the X of the board or behind it with your front foot, and that's going to be a safety precaution so that you don't spike your own wheels. So the SUSOIX SpikeBoard deck has a logo on top, says SUSOIX, and the X always goes forward so that when you are performing stand-up spike, your front foot is on top of the X or slightly behind it. So you won't be spiking up on your front wheels, and also you will be towards the back of the board. You'll notice there's a little bit of turbulence on the terrain here, and all we need to do is get toward the back of the board, and if the front wheels go over, the rear wheels are very likely to follow. So when you start getting some choppy asphalt, make sure that you keep your weight more toward the back and let yourself float right over any turbulence that you might see. As soon as we get into a little bit of climbing on steeper grades, you're going to see that the return is very critical. The faster you can get your return back up and spiked back into the pavement is going to be the measure by which you can carry speed. The idea in climbing is to carry as much speed as you can. In other words, you're better off making short, quick strokes than very long, laborious, powerful strokes, because during your slow return, you're going to be losing carrying speed. So you want to get up to speed and then carry it as efficiently as possible. Notice also that the elbow on the outside is staying nice and high and allowing for the arm to stay at 90 degrees and getting that spike in and close to the board as much as possible. Notice the head bob going along with the body bob. The knees on low grade and flat do not bend. You won't begin to bend that rear leg until the grade gets a little steeper. So also pay attention as well to the end of the stroke. The end of the stroke is near the quadricep or past the quadricep. In climbing, it gets a little shorter. So the foam makes it right about to the quad and then returns. The steeper it gets, the shorter the stroke is going to become. Also, you'll notice if you pay attention to the legs after about 1 year or so, the quad is going to begin to just naturally push itself toward the center on every stroke, so that it allows room for the top of the skateboard spike to zip past. So by now we've got a pretty good warm-up. We're feeling pretty good coming up the boulevard. It took a little while, especially since we started right there cold turkey with no warm-up. And climbing's a little bit of a shock to the body. It doesn't know what's coming. And after you get into a nice solid warm-up and all the muscles are beginning to feel what climbing's about, they react instantly and just snap straight right to it. Now this is a long, nice, it's not a false flat because it's got a pretty good grade. I'd say the grade here is about 4 to 6%. It's a very casual workout for stand-up spike here along this boulevard road. We use it quite a bit, and we'll summit at the golf course. And the sled ride off the golf course with a little bit of cadence braking is very manageable and safe. Keep your speed in check. Use a cadence brake. Just pop your leg a few times. Keep your arms out. Take some wind. Do not get into a tuck. And you should be fine. Be very respectful of the traffic laws, and certainly don't go over the speed limit. But I never need to foot drag at all when I go down off that golf course. I just need to, like I said, keep your arms up, say stand straight up, and cadence brake a little bit till you come around the apex of the turn so you can see a clearing, and you should be able to slide right off the golf course at a good 26, 27 miles an hour maximum, and go back in through town, come back around up mountain, and then the boulevard again. It's a nice little loop. I like to do it 6 times in repetitions, and you can do that casually or you can do that at anaerobic threshold, however you might like. If you're a young person and you're running cross country and you're new to stand-up spike, then you'll probably work your way up into doing some interval training, which means repetitions at anaerobic threshold. Here we go, the little Deer Hill Road. So this is going to offer much more of an incline than the boulevard, and you won't be climbing this in the first 12 months at all. We never climbed anything like this for at least 16, 17 months. Stand-up spike is equivalent to double poling of Nordic skiing, and most sports don't develop the upper body as strongly as Nordic ski does. If you're a Nordic skier, you're going to zoom straight into some of this training very quickly, and if you're not, give yourself a little patience and you'll begin to enjoy this. Notice also the rear foot has gone back, and now we're beginning to bend and drop, bend the legs and drop all the way toward the rear on these steeper climbs. There's a steep little grade coming off the boulevard onto Deer Hill, and what you want to do is make sure that your shaft is perfectly parallel to that board and your return is fast. and your stroke is short. Notice how short that stroke was. We weren't even making it down to the quad so much during that really steep climb. The stroke gets a lot shorter when the pitches get up near 9+%, 8+%, and this is going to flatten out, a little peek back, make sure we're not blocking anybody, and we're going to get some flat area here, come up on the camera car, and there our stroke lengthens again, and our legs stop bending. So we're getting a little turbulence coming out from under the car, and that's no big deal. We're going to try to stay toward the back of the board and float right over anything that comes our way, and keep dropping our head and our body straight into the stroke. That shaft perfectly parallel with the board. Once you get the stroke, after 2-3 years, on your 4th year, you probably won't be looking down anymore. And that first year, go ahead and peek down. Take a peek at your spike just before it hits. Right when it hits, go ahead and lift the head so you can see where you're going. And your head is going to go up, down, and up, down. And your eyeballs are going to go also down to the red spike tip and see where it's at. So don't fret when you're on that flat land doing 5-6 miles an hour, and sometimes you'll spike your rear wheel. We've all done it. I did it quite a bit when I was first beginning, and you'll also probably spike your front fender 1 or 2 times. Again, stay on that X or behind it, and you won't be spiking your front wheels. And here you also see we're wearing a helmet and wrist guards. This is mandatory at all times. You must wear a wrist guard and a helmet. In the beginning, when you're out on some flat road, learning to switch stance, a great road is down by the river, nice and flat there, back and forth. You're going to wear elbow and knee pads till you finally get your stroke and you're comfortable and you're dialed in. Stand-up spike has nothing at all to do with the daredevil sport of skateboarding or longboarding. What we're dealing with here is a board with wheels at both ends. Very much like a ski is a board with wheels at both ends. The idea is never to go for it. Neither is that the case on a road bike. You're riding a road bike, you're out there for fitness. You're out there to run your motor and go anaerobic, go aerobic, go from point A to point B, go easy, go slow. Cycling is actually a stroke. You're spinning gently or hard. And swimming, the same thing. Cross-country skiing. The idea is never to go for it. It's just to get your fitness and your workout. Stand-up spike is the same thing. So once you begin to control your stroke, control your steering, get a little more strength, then you can begin to get up, go out on some roads, and start to do your workout. Stay to the right-hand side of the road. Let the traffic pass you. It's always very rare that you'd ever get hit from behind. Hold your line. Never break your line unless you have indicated left or right. And certainly do not go down Strom King Hill. You are going to walk down or take a car. But until we come up with a break, you're not going to be going down hills at all with any kind of desire to go for it or see what happens, see if I can make it. Trust me, folks, that's the world of downhill longboarding, and I don't know where to go practice that safely, quite honestly. And I'd recommend you wear a spine protector, leathers, and a full face helmet. And the sport of downhill longboarding, very pretty sport. But honestly, I haven't the slightest idea where to go practice that sport here on the East Coast. So what we're doing here is going up hills and dedicating ourselves to fitness. This upper Deer Hill climb is always going to be associated with walking down. So at least you're going to walk down to Maple and get yourself back over to Boulevard. and you're not going to be doing any tucking or doing any downhill. So let's get back to the stroke. This is Deer Hill again, getting a little steeper, and we can see it gets steeper as soon as the knees begin to bend, and we are dropping all of the body weight onto the spike, and we're also dipping the head, and we're taking a peek now and again, but psychologically what you want to do is really get into the feel of the stroke, and in your mind's eye see your entire body actuating the stroke. Really feel engagement of the energy that's coming out of your body, and meditate on the stroke, and keep your head from not looking up at how much is left. Certainly you want to be safe and make sure that there's nothing up the road that's coming at you, but if you start looking up the road to see how much climb is left, it's going to psychologically break you down. So there's a little peripheral vision. You're looking up the road, maybe 2 car lengths, 3 car lengths, but certainly if you kept your head up and kept looking and looking to how much was left, you would stop concentrating on your stroke and not make it. So that little 180 turn should have taken it so that our front side was facing it and we wouldn't have had that dismount. But we know this road pretty good. Hadn't been up it in a little while. It's actually the first time ever that we've come up here in StandUpSpike. So kind of forgotten this road a little bit, but once you make that turn, you are, oh gosh, you're about halfway there. You're only going to need to take one more turn, summit at the top of the subdivision there at Deer Hill, and then zip down and come straight back up to Strom King School. So as you saw there was a little slight spike on the board. Always pay attention and make sure that your spike has gone into the pavement before you apply pressure. Beginners will spike their fenders, and they can spike the board, and they can spike the wheel, and it's okay. What you want to do is be ready to feel the sensation of having spiked something other than the pavement, and simply don't put in the full effort, and the spike will pop right off, and you just go straight into the next stroke. There haven't been that many missed strokes here in this climb, and a missed stroke is when the spike, the carbide steel spike, doesn't make a full engagement, and that could be a little unnerving. It'll skip off the pavement. It won't transfer energy, and naturally there'll be a little receding in the speed, and what you want to do is don't give it a second's thought. Go straight into the next stroke, especially when you're climbing. So one little missed stroke, just go to the next one. Miss the next one, go to the next one. So depending on how you missed, you might lose anywhere between 75, 85, 95, 100% of the power. Usually a missed stroke will carry 15 to 35% of some kind of power that you put into it. So just move on to the next stroke and concentrate on making sure that the injection really goes in. Once the injection of the carbide steel spike tip goes into the asphalt, you're ready to make your exertion. So we're keeping our breathing easy and steady, and as you can see, our cadence is switching from side to side. Again, the knees aren't bending, so we know it's not that steep right there, and we try to relax, push our hips forward and up toward the sky on the return, and keep that foam handle going straight past the quad as we pick up speed. And now we begin to look up a little more as it flattens out, but the head and the upper body continue to bob with each stroke and really help us quite a bit and pushing our body weight down upon that skateboard spike that enters at a 45-degree angle. The hand that grips the shaft is always on that silicone, folks. You're never gripping the carbon fiber shaft. So some people make the mistake to use a shoulder width apart hand grip, and of course if that were the case, we would have made a silicone grip that was shoulder width apart. And so the hand grip is about 12, 13 centimeters long. It's right underneath the foam, and that's where you will always grab. When you get at these low speeds, when you switch, it's absolutely critical that you give just a little more extra energy, a little honey spike, I like to call it, before you switch. Notice how we didn't quite get the shaft completely parallel with the board on the first switch, and don't mind that. What you want to do is make sure that you don't start going backwards, so you really want to just get that shaft up and over and stop the arrest the rear roll, and pick up speed again and stay relaxed. There you had a little switch, made it straight over with a good parallel spike with the board. And hello neighbors, walking the dogs, never seen stand-up spike before, evidently. Not that many people have. Stand-up mountains, that's what we're doing. It's a delicious workout. This kind of training is going to be sensational for youth hockey or for youth lacrosse. It will just rip your back and your core and your arms. And remember again, please, this athlete could not go up as much as a 10-foot lump off to the side of a bike path 4 years ago. Your body will adapt to the load slowly, and within 14 to 15 months you will begin to stand up mountains. And that's the nature and the essence of stand-up spike, is to stand up mountains and also to do flatland time trialing. So this is very similar to cycling, where they concentrate of king and queen of mountain competitions and also time trial across flats. Stand-up spike is a sport that does the same. So bingo, there we are at the top of Strom King almost. Coming around Deer Hill. We're going to do just a little one-legged pop off there. The car has a little hard time going as fast as we are, so we push back on it, and we're going to have to do a little cadence braking, you're going to see, which is kind of like pushing in reverse. And we could have cadence braked the whole thing, only we had to add a little foot drag because the car was slowing up more than we were, and wanted just to keep it really safe. So a cadence brake, we'll get into some tutorials on cadence braking, and there's a little foot drag as well, just to stay safe, not come up on the car too much. Keep your speed in check. Always keep your speed in control. And if you can't control your speed with your foot drag and cadence brake, then you got no business going that fast ever. So there's no go for it, there's no stoke, there's no yeah I'm flying, there's none of that in stand-up spike. This is an endurance sport, and you're gonna get your yayas out going up. So if you're into downhilling, this ain't the sport for you. Go back to longboarding. So our driver makes a little misstep here, wants to go downhill, and we want to go to the top. So we're going to continue, and he'll catch up with us here in a minute. Takes a little left-hand turn, lets that car by, and a little two-point turn, zippity-doo. Got some fantastic light going on here around 5:30, 6 o'clock, Cornwall on Hudson, New York. And we'll pop into the camera again here. Bingo, just finished this up right up by Strom King School. And hey, Strom King, if you got a lacrosse team, you do a little stand-up spike in summertime, and you're going to have some mighty fine Physical development with your lacrosse team, youth hockey, same thing. And football players, if you want heart and lung, you want crazy amounts of core, back, arms, this is going to give it to you. Absolutely. Stand up mountains. So we're very near the top here. Relaxed, taking it easy, coming in at about a 30-minute ascent from the river. And naturally, if you want to start StandUpSpike, just please look us up. No problem. You can call us at 917-566-3386. You can visit us at StandUpSpike.com. And also SpikeBoarding. SpikeBoarding adds another stroke. We'll tell you about that at SpikeBoarding. The spike makes it happen. It comes from roller ski, brought to you by SUSOIX, and become the motor, folks.
This video is brought to you by SUSOIX. SUSOIX, the innovators of spikeboarding, StandUpSpike, and the creators of the original skateboard spike. SUSOIX, become the motor.